A 50 cubit high tree. This is a shear on Megilat Esther for Parshat Zachor. I'm going to put it up on the screen. And as some pointed out, the image indeed that I chose, which I doctored up, should hopefully look a little bit like a gallows. A 50 high cubit tree, a cubit high tree, 50 amma. An amma is around, let's say, approximately 9 inches or so, give or take. It's 6 tfachim. Actually, it's more. Excuse me, an amma 19 inches. Made a mistake. 19 inches for an amma. So you do the math. It's pretty high, a pretty high tree. And I want to focus on this today, which seems like a detail. I know we've talked about it before. It came up in last week's shir as well. But I want to open a new window for you, and maybe more than a window. I use that term advisedly, opening a window, to help us to see another element of the Megillah perhaps we haven't focused on previously. Some of it will sound familiar at the outset, but I can assure you inside of a few minutes, it will seem very, very strange. And this is a shir specifically on Megilat Esther for Parshat Zachor. I'm not dealing with the Parsha of Parshat Zachor directly, but as you'll soon see, I think we're teasing out some lessons about the descendant of Amalek, who is, of course, featured prominently, the Agagite, Agagi, Haman, Yemach Shemo v'Zichro, who, of course, features, unfortunately, rather prominently in Megilat Esther. So the basic initial question is, why is the detail about the tree coming up so often? I gave you all sorts of citations in the Megillah regarding the tree. There are a lot of them. And each time it mentions the tree, many of those times, the Megillah goes out of its way to keep telling you how tall the tree was. Why the tree altogether? If you were trying to tell the story about the trial and the rescue of Purim, as we do each time in our own liturgy, it's strange that we should have to mention at the end of the liturgy each time in the Alanisim, Talu Oto Ved Banav Al Ha'etz. I get it. Just say Vashivot Lugmula Barosho. It's like the exact way that he died is somehow a crucial element of this story, and it seems strange. Now, before you jump on me and you say, "Oh, Rabbi, we learned in the last shir that the Gemara says about the tree in the Garden of Eden," yes, that's another shir. And a few years ago, I actually gave a series called "Born in the Garden." We're talking before the shir started about finding things that are archived. So, "Born in the Garden," and it was the birth of prayer in the garden, the birth of Hanukkah in the garden, the birth of death in the garden. That was the one for Rosh Hashanah Yom Kippur. The birth of Purim in the garden. All different, the birth of Pesach in the garden, all different elements that relate back to the story of Gan Eden. I'm not going to touch that story so much today, wouldn't you know? But there is something, obviously, about the fact that the tree keeps coming up. And the first time it comes up, we'll focus on that one, is Zeresh talking to Haman, Yemach Shemo, I should say Zeresh, Timach Shema Gam. What happens? Haman is very much he's jubilant. He's been invited to a party, a drinking party, no less, just him and the king and Esther. And what happens after that? He sees Mordechai and his world's collapsing. His inner world collapses, and he's upset and aggrieved, and he goes home. And what is the advice that he receives? That's when the plan is hatched. It's actually not his idea. It's his wife Zeresh's idea. But Zeresh, all his beloved, they're all counseling the same thing. Yasu eitz gavoa chamishim ama. Why don't you make a tree and make the tree 50 amot high? I mean, they're telling him the specs. Uvaboker, and tomorrow, emor lamelech v'yitlu et Mordechai alav, uvo im hamelech ala mishtes samer v'yitav hadavar lifnei Aman v'yasa eitz. We learn that you'll go to the party, you'll be so happy. All you have to do is dispatch the builders to put up a tree, let it be 50 amot high, and we'll hang Mordechai upon it. And then you'll come to the Mishnah, and all will be well with the world. So first, to frame the question, to sharpen the question a little more, you could say, well, it's a detail. And okay, V'talo Toved Banav Al Ha'etz is in Alanisim because that's what happened. Yeah, but there's something about the tree. Why not just say, Vashivot Lo Gmula Barosho Umetu? They died, or they were put to death, or something. We have to know the exact manner of being put to death. Seems rather excessive. Of course, as we will soon see, Nothing is what it seems in the Megillah. After all, it is even called Megilat Esther, not just because of the name of Esther Amalka, not just because of Anochi Haster, Aster et Panai Bayamahu, the sense of Hester Panim, the hiding divine countenance, Hashem behind the scenes, as it were, directing everything. And at the same time, his presence is not overtly felt unless people choose to admit him into their lives, their hearts, etc. But of course, Esther also, meaning that there's much that is hidden and concealed within it. So this question is really not my question. It's the question of the Maharal of Prague. Meimenu anu shotim. We drink from his waters. The vast array of creative essays and works by the Maharal of Prague. And his sefer on the Megillah is called Or Chadash, a new light. So we'll read through a serious section of it. It is on the longer side of things, but you hopefully, when we're done reading through it, opens a world of understanding about this. And it's really based on this question. She tells him about making him with the beloved ones. They're all of a kind, saying it should be 50 amot high. It'll be the best thing. That's what you should do. Yesh lahaksha. We should ask, Maya eitza zot she'amra zeresh ishto yase eitz gavoa. Make it a high tree. Ve'etza zot hakol yodim. Everybody knows if you're making a tree, meaning a tree doesn't mean a tree, it means a gallows. Everybody knows. So, all right, we get it. Like, obviously, if you're going to kill him, so that's one way to kill him. It sounds like they're giving him some kind of real sage counsel. He doesn't know what to do, and they're telling him pinpoint what to do. Further, they didn't have to also mention anything. Why did they just say, why are they making it about him? Then just say to him, go to the king and tell the king, go hang Mordechai. Just start with this. Baboker mor lamelech v'itlud Mordechai Allah. They hang him. However they hang people in ancient Persia, they'll do to Mordechai. What's the big deal? Like, he is, after all, don't forget, de facto holding all the cards. He's de facto the man with all the passwords, if you will, to the king's social media and electronic accounts. He's got the signet ring. He can stamp whatever he wants. Why don't you just issue the order, have someone else killed? No, you have to have made a tree of this specification. And then you're going to tell the king that this is what should happen. Why? My nafka mina, my nafka b'mita zot or mita acheret. And what do we need to know how? Just say you're going to be put to death. Does anybody care how the Maccabim on Hanukkah killed their foes? It was arrows, it was swords, however it was ve'od kasha, lamra amra, yasu eitz gavoa chamishim ama dafka mispar hazeh. Why did they bring up this exact number? And you could just explain, kivadai haman gam ken yad davar zeh shechol hamed Mordechai. He knew this. Rak mipnei she'amar lamala vayives bein av lichloch yad b'Mordechai levado. But he didn't just want to kill Mordechai. He wanted to make a statement about it. That's why he was expanding in concentric circles. It's not just him. It's all the sages. It's all the Jews and Shushan, all the Jews in the world. Take everybody down. So there had to be something big. That's how Haman works. So in Cain, Sha'ala zot min hamelech hu bizayin l'melech she'ela zot l'melech hu bizayin l'melech Haman. He's going to say to the king, sire, could we do away with some guy out there? One guy? The king's going to tell him, let it alone. Who is he? Does he have any power? Nothing. So let it alone. So therefore they told him, you want to do it big? Do it big. Make a tree, 50 amot high. And then if people will ask, and they will ask, you'll answer, he's worthy of being strung up on something 50 amot in the air. He is one of the commanders of 50, meaning, and this has roots in Chazal. The Maharal, of course, passed away, physically speaking, from the world in 1609. He's buried in Prague in the cemetery there. I was Zachor to go there once in my life to see it, to daven at the kever. But there are roots already in Chazal that Mordechai makes his name as a military commander. So ulafi malato v'chashivuto kach yesh lo eitz litlot bo. It could be that it's just a detail to describe to us how important it is. This guy is so important in the ranking of the military that they had to hang him up. And why so high? As Shelley points out in the chat, absolutely everyone's going to see it from very far away, right? Ulahagid labriot kamachashav hayazeh. It will show how important this man is, and yet. You think he's so important, you're going to get killed, right? So Adarabba, Yechashivud Haman. You figure out, and who did this to Mordechai? Oh, that was Haman. How much stronger is Haman? Right? So it's the same. There's a very easy answer, a pshat answer. And you could content yourself with that and say, they chose 50 because it's a number. It's high. Maybe it was higher than all the buildings in Shushan. We'll put him up there, string him up. It will show how prominent he is, but don't forget, so much of the conflict, that is the conflict in Haman's world, is it's not just one person against one person, it's two nations, it's a Teutonic struggle, right? He sees all different layers that are playing out. And the point is, they told him, therefore, yeah, you can't just go to the king and say, let's kill him in a back room, line him up against the wall. It's got to be prominent. He's prominent, and that'll aggrandize you even further. The Yosef Lekach quoted in the annotated edition of the Or Chadash, a masterful work by Rav Hartman, not related to the Rabbi Hartman many people speak about, who was once a rabbi in America, who went and made an institute in Israel. Not related at all, as far as I know. It's certainly not the same person. This is a person who did, through Machon Yerushalayim, did the annotated edition. He quoted from another sefer, the Yosef Lekach, who wrote the following, a sveikot, based along these lines, the same kinds of questions. Shira'ui, Lihitorer bakatuv hazeh heim. Tchila, first. Birotenu ha'etza azor asher nitnu ishtav avav eila kulam dvarim she'en lem tam. There's no purpose to them. V'hinei avav eila ein safek shayu chachamim. Obviously, the beloved ones are also chachamim. They're all together. Acharei heyotam ahuvim lemishnu lahamelach. They're beloved of the second to the king, who is again functionally the king. So they're beloved of him. It means they're in his inner circle. This is his cabinet. They're his confidants. So they're not fools. So they just came up with this very labyrinthine idea of she'ein safek al chachmat Haman ve'anhagato bedat ve'etza amuka v'nemar al ha'etza haniv'eret hazot vayitav hadavar lifnei Haman kilo hayta ha'etza amuka me'od. Now, here's the first lesson as it applies to Parshat Zachor. There is no gainsaying that in most cases, the enemies of the Jewish people are not fools. They're diabolical, but they're not fools. The idea that the Megilat goes out of its way to tell you, ooh, Haman thought this was a great idea, should make us laugh. What is this such a brilliant idea? I'll just say, kill him in a prominent way. He thought this was amazing. So something else must be going on. But he wouldn't have thought of this idea, like to make a big showing of it. He figured out to extrapolate from one-to-one fight that he has with Mordechai to extrapolate to kill Lo Aleinu, an entire people. But he couldn't figure out how to do it. They had to give him the exact method, and that he thought was a great idea. There's no depth in this at all. Divrei tinokot ve'olim lo ra'u or eitz utvuna rishona. Rishona amru yasu eitz gavoa chamishim am v'alo bezeret gavoa yoter al gova Mordechai maspik litloto. Right. So even children and babies who would hear this, if they just think about it, they would see there's no wisdom in this at all on the face of it. There's nothing here. You don't need it to be 50 amot in the air in order to hang somebody. It just has to be something that's a little bit taller than Mordechai, so he can't be on his tippy toes. That's it. That's the whole story. But no, he thought this was amazing. He thought this was so crucial, so amazing, right? So it's strange to think about. And the Yosef Lekach, I brought him here because even if you answered as the Maharal initially does, that this was about making a big showing of it, could be, but honestly, a big showing didn't need someone else to figure out, to explain to Haman about it. He gets that already. That's why we're in this predicament, and more than a predicament, this looming catastrophe of letters that have already been sent out talking about day of wanton destruction, the 13th of Adar. It's the letters are sent, the die is cast, yeah? We didn't need this. So you could answer, well, just like that, but not so clear. And Yosef Lekach says so. The Maharal, of course, didn't content himself with this idea. And here we open up the door to the next part of this. And I caution you, I warn you in advance, I give many different kinds of shiurim. There's shiurim in Gemara on Monday nights. So there I'm clearing Rashba and Tosfos on the sugya of Baal Tosif, and we're going back and forth with the Pnei Yehoshua, and we're checking out what Rav Asher Weiss has to say about his analysis. Okay, so that's one kind of shiur. And you have shiurim in Chasidus, and then you have shiurim in Halacha, and shiurim in whatever it is, in Chumash. So this is going to go off in a little bit of a direction that's going to be maybe a little more challenging for some of us to wrap our heads around. So many of us have heard of the legend of Dr. Faustus. So it was made popular at the end of the 16th century by Marlowe in his rendering of this work. And then at that time came the expression of a person who makes a Faustian bargain. I gave you here straight out of the Encyclopedia Britannica. You can read it while I'm talking. No sense in reading it line by line. But well before Faustus, neither the story by Marlowe nor the Germanic folklore that came from sometime in the Middle Ages, well before it, there was a Hemanic bargain that was made. And what was that? What was that? So here, the Maharal opens the door, and I'll try to move slowly. And if you have questions, by all means, put it in the chat. Let's try to learn it through. So he says, indeed, you should be aware there is something actually very deep that's going on here. How highly did he think of himself? He thought of himself in a godlike manner. Yeah. If I was giving it more in the philosophical realm instead of the literary realm, I would say he was the Ubermensch. He is beyond. He is not a regular human being. He has supernatural powers. He's made himself into some kind of idol. What does that mean? He thought that people should bow to him. Well, clearly they were bowing to him. You could argue that was just an honorific, but he thought of himself so highly, he made himself something idolatrous. Let's unpack the Maharal's understanding of this. V'yadua ki af Moshe Rabbeinu alav shalom ne'emar alav memtet sharei bina nivraim ba'olam v'kulam nimsru l'Moshe she'nemar v'tachsreil ma'at min elokim ki shar ha'chamishim lo nimsar la'adam. Whatever this idea means, there are 50 levels, 50 gates of understanding that exist in the world. 50 facets of understanding that exist in the world, and they were all given to Moshe except for one. The 50th rung was not, even Moshe Rabbeinu was not able to access. As the Maharal goes on to say, I don't know if I give you that part, I don't remember right at this moment, that's when he's asking Hashem on Har Sinai, Hareini na et kvodecha, please show me your glory. And Hashem says, no one can see me and live. You will see the back of me, not the front of me. There's imagery, a lot of imagery there. You will not understand me entirely, Moshe. It's just not possible. 49 rungs given to the human beings. That's human knowledge. It's the nth degree of knowledge, of capacity to understand things. After that 49th gate, we cannot go any higher. The world's created in 7 days. When you fill out 7, it's 7 squared. 7 squared. You fill it out, 7 by 7, that's 49. The 50th rung is simply not associated with this world. But Haman, he believed that the godly dimension within him was so strong because he was so powerful. He is related to the 50th gate. He can aspire to it. Lefichach Amar Yasu Eitz Gavoa Chamishim Lahodia Ki Mitato Shamisha Asakin Negdo Hu Ba Mishar Hanun Shemagia Sham Haman. Therefore, by stringing someone up onto something that is 50 amot in height, he was declaring to the world that actually I am in control and I am a master of the world of the intellect. Not only am I all-powerful, almighty, you could say, in the 127 provinces, not only do I have great wealth and great honor, but I also have an intellectual mastery that vastly surpasses anyone else, even the Jews. Therefore, anyone who tussles with me, I will string them up on something that will have a certain symbolism. It is 50 amot tall because it relates to the concept of the 49. Now you'll say to me, Rabbi, I mean, how much did Haman really know? He understood there was a Gemara in Rosh Hashanah. The Gemara hadn't been written yet, so he knows this is like oral tradition of the Jews, the 49 gates of wisdom. Like, really? So my first answer is Goebbels. We've talked about it several times. Yamach Shemo. Eichmann, Yamach Shemo v'Zichro, the one who knew the Jewish calendar and all the Yom Tovim, and the other who spoke Hebrew. So don't know. And number two, it's beside the point, in my view, entirely beside the point. The point here is that there's something here about how it's being built. Yeah, something about how it's going to be constructed. Something about that it's going to be a tree that is 50 amma high, 50 representative of the 50 gates of wisdom. V'kach amru lo yoatzav ki kasher ya'etz gavoa chamishim. If you can build a tree, a gallows that's 50 amot high, az tuchal liot gover alav, then you can overcome him. Ki gedula shelcha hu mishar chamishim. Your greatness is from the 50th gate. Yesh b'cha elokut asher shayach lo chamishim. Now, I've no doubt they actually said it to him this way. But remember, who's writing the story? Klal Yisrael is writing the story. Mordechai and Esther are writing the story. The Chachamim writing the story. The Anshe Knesset Gdola are codifying the story. The point here is davka, that there's something put into the mouth of Zeresh and the coterie of friends and advisors to Haman, telling him it's that number, it's 50. It's about surpassing even their greatest leader. I note also in passing today that tonight and tomorrow is Zayin Adar, the birthday of Moshe Rabbeinu, Zechut Yagein Aleinu, also is Yurtzeit. And the idea that Haman was aware of that also with the calendrical system of the Jews. So does he not know a lot about the biography of Moshe Rabbeinu? He read a biography about Moshe. He learned something in the academies about the Jews and about their leader and how high he aspired in terms of the worldly intellect. Could be, but this is the Hamanic bargain, just like what would come later, Lahavdil, in the world of Faustus. It's Dr. Faustus making a Faustian bargain, trading away something in order to get this mastery of the intellect and of the mind. Therefore, he made something that related him to something that was 50 amot tall, and the number 50 and the gates 50. Remember, he's a very superstitious person. He found out, the Gemara says that it was Adar when he drew the lots. He's thrilled to pieces, because that's when the Jewish people have, it's the end of their year in the calendrical system of the biblical months. It's when Moshe Rabbeinu died. Everything's going in the right direction, right? He's extremely superstitious. He believes in the number 50 also. There they told him that. The fact that he aspired himself, he wanted to reach as high as the 50th rung, that led to his death. Now, you'll tell me, because he put up the 50 amma gallows, that's not what it means, of course. It refers to the idea that this man, who was so drunk with his sense of self, I use, again, the term drunk advisedly, we'll come back to drunkenness maybe a little bit later for this time, has power, political power, and military power, and economic power, and he's got tons of honor. He's got social capital that he's spending. He's going to parties just where it's him and the king and his wife and the queen. Now this is one more avenue. And what better than to destroy not just the Jew, but the idea of the Jew? Yeah? We've heard this from the mouths, lo aleinu, of some of our diabolical foes. Ki ein magia l'sham ha'adam. No person can get to that 50th rung. Ubishara zaha heder el ha'adam. It's disappeared. It's occluded from the vision of a person. Ki ein l'metziut sham bishar ha'chamishim. It does not have any existence in the 50th rung. A human being simply does not operate there. That's beyond our intellectual capability. But in Haman's world, why not? It would be a great rebuke not only to Mordechai and Jews who love Mordechai the person, but the idea of the Jewish people. Yeah, I got to the 50th rung. He signed his death warrant in his desire to reach that high. And part of that reaching high, by the way, is being that Ubermensch, is being that individual who says, I am supreme, I am godly, because I have reached, right, this high level. In the end, in chapter 7, will be hung on a tree that is 50 amot high. Now I pull the lid off the next part of this. And again, at the beginning, say like, what? What do you mean? I know this is still filling it out. The Medrash says, Achar dvarim ha'ela, Gidal hamelach et Haman. He raised him up. Amar Rabbi Akiva, ad heichan gidlo. Till where did he raise him up? Ad eitz ashel chamishim amma. He got him up to a piece of wood that was the tree, the 50 amma high. As it says, Yasu eitz gavoa chamishim amma. Let there be a tree made. Okay. And also the expression in the Megillah, chapter 3, verse 1, is me'al kol. He put Haman upon all. Ad techamnei talui al chamishim ama. Kaf esrin, lamed talatin, hare chamishin. Already a hint here. The gematria of kol, the numerological value is 50. It's already a hint that he was putting him up. He was pushing, Achashverosh pushed Haman up. Now, he propped him up. He puffed him up. And the net result was Haman wants to reach higher and higher, right? So, literally means he put him on top of all the other ministers, but it said he gave him some kind of demigod status. He bestowed it upon him in his own mind. He's upon all of the ministers. That's what caused him to be killed ultimately on a tree of 50 amas. That's why Rabbi Akiva asks, until what point did the king raise him up? Right? That's over here in the orange. Right? Till what point was he raised up? Till the 50 amma point. Right? Meaning, Achashverosh raised him up until the 50th gate, as he had made him into an avodah zarah. He tried to show him you are beyond all of the vagaries and vulnerabilities and uncertainties that beset human beings. And of course, the annals of history are filled with people drunk on their power. This doesn't come as a surprise to us. But the idea that there was also, says the Maharal, an intellectual component, a spiritual component. And again, the intellect and the spirit, of course, certainly in a pre-scientific world, are always bound up with each other. Not that they're not bound up with each other today, but the idea that, as the late Rabbi Jonathan Sachs, Zichron Livracha, pointed out, science tells us how things are put together by taking them apart. Religion tells us why, and I would add the word who is behind it, and why things are together, and puts them together and shows links between things. In the ancient world, those two are enmeshed with each other, right? So no one can really get there. When he got him up to there, he can't exist anymore. It's not the literal building of the tree, now you understand. It's that in the mind's eye of Haman, he's a demigod. He's beyond the limits of human beings, and intellectually as well. Understand these ideas, they're very deep. So again, a person who doesn't have any critical thinking faculties could never understand this, because now we've taken the symbolism of the act of the building of the tree and expanded it to understand it on an intellectual level and a spiritual level. The Chamishim Sharei Bina, 50 levels, gates of understanding that just you hit a limit. Now, the next medrash is really the one that when I first saw it, my eyes went wide, and then I wanted to roll them, but as I kept reading, I realized more and more that actually there was great depth going on here. By the by, I'll also give credit where credit is due to Makir Tov, to Harav Pinchas Friedman, the Shvilei Pinchas, who has a sefer on Megilat Esther and Purim. And he has an essay, Mamar Lamed, where he talks about some of these themes. I just went back to the source and got the Maharal. He has some other ideas that he brings up that I won't mention today, but a lot of this shir is, at least got me rolling from Rav Pinchas Friedman. So certainly finding this Maharal, otherwise I would not have thought to look it up on my own. I found this last year. I was taking notes on it, and it's been sort of in gestation for the last year. So how did Haman procure the wood? This is not actually the wood. I just found a picture online for those who are wondering. Is this the wood? It's not the wood, of course. The Medrash Yalkut Shimoni describes the following. Where did Haman get the wood? Vaya Haman chozer mevakesh krosh chamishim am. He was looking for a 50 amma long beam. You'll say to me, he's Haman. Like, let him just ask anybody. We have to know where he got it. Obviously, there's some meaning here. Well, where did he find it? V'lo matza ela kora shahaita b'toch beit, ela kora shahaita b'toch beito. He actually found the beam was somehow in his home. It was under his roof somehow, not literally his house, but in his family. Lifi Shahaya Beno, Parshandata Hegamon, Becardonia. Where is Cardonia? Cardonia today would be present-day Turkey. And his son was the governor of Turkey. Remember, they're in charge of 127 provinces, so it's a family business. V'natal Nasser Echad mitevata shel Noach. He took a beam from the teva, from the ark of Noach. Shahaya Erko Shel Neser Chamishim Amma, because the length of the beams, so says the Torah in Parshat Noach, that one of the dimensions, the width of it was 50 Amma. So he took Davka that. He wanted a piece of wood with like some good history on it, so that he could really fire the shot that would really make an impression, that people would not only see the symbolism of his hanging of Mordechai Lo Aleinu, but also of the very wood. It was like specialized. Everything had to be specialized with him. Again, you want a great low-hanging fruit example of this. If Haman wanted to Lo Aleinu get rid of the entire people, what did he draw lots for something that was like 12 months away? Just be done with it already. Launch the campaign. Say, we'll do it in the summer. No, he waited till the next spring because it was all about the lots and the symbolism and the symmetries and everything's going to work out. And there's all sorts of symmetries that are not related to God. They're related to the fates and they're related to the systems of the mechanistic world that he lives in, of which he himself can climb higher and higher. Right? Now, why is 50 Amma beam still available? God made a remembrance in the world that the generations of the world should be aware that there was such a thing as the flood in the world. As it says in Sefer Tehillim, Zecher Sani Flotav, he made a remembrance for his wonders. V'chein, Kshenapach Sdom, Hinir Zikron Olam, God also left a remembrance for the overturning of Sdom. And what's that, of course, which we're learning on Mondays. We just learned this a few weeks ago in our Chumash class, going through Parshat Vayera in depth with Mefarshim Be'iyun. So she was made into a pillar of salt. So Arach Shav Yomeret, she's still there. Sheyu Adorot Notnim Shivcho Shel Shabor Olam. People will praise the Almighty. They'll see the remnant of it. So says the Alkut Shimoni that describes that there's a remnant. So Haman goes fetching this particular board. It's a perfect thing, not only because it's 50 amot long, but because there's a history to it. That's why it said tomorrow, you'll go, you'll eat and drink, and it'll be sweet for you, good for you. You'll see your enemy strung up in front of you, and your heart will be happy. Your heart will be happy. Uma ra'a lomar litzalvo. Why specifically that you have to like hang him? Ela amar. Rather, here was the thinking, the thought process. Hare sha'ashimi kol davar hakadosh baruch hu yachol hatzil. We see already they guesstimated God can save a human being from everything. According to the legends of the Jews, Avram mina Eish, Yitzchak mina Akeda, Yaakov mina Malach, Moshe micherev Parah, Yisro mina Yam, umikol davar, uv'chein mikol davar, uminat saluv, enu yachol lahatzil. This God is not able to save an individual who is being put up to be hung. What does that mean? What are you talking about? Why not? God could do anything, right? So we see it that way. But in his world, they're finding sort of what's the backdoor way that we can outsmart the Almighty. Again, because they have a very mechanistic view. Also, most of the things on this list, Avram from the fiery kiln, Yitzchak from the Akedah, all these things have to do with, let's say, either natural phenomena that didn't function as they should have according to natural order, or a protagonist or an antagonist who was pushed aside for some reason from what they were going to do. But if the enemy of the Jewish people will try to hang somebody, God's not going to intervene and upset that apple cart. Again, you'll scratch your head and say, what? That's illogical. But that, according to the Medrash, is the mind of Haman. And why do we need to know this detail? Because Haman's idea is, I'm going to outwit God. This is the people of God? No, I'm smarter than them. They're 49 levels, I'll get to 50. And not only that, I'll put it in their faces that their main leader, Mordechai, that the Gemara describes, Mordechai Bedoro, Moshe Bedoro, in one place. Chazal described it. It might be in a Medrash, actually. Maybe it's not in the Gemara. Okay. It is strung up. Like we did him in. We did in their whole way of seeing things. And look, we found a method to kill Jews that hadn't been thought of before. And look, their God didn't save them. Sad, but that's what he thought. So, explains the Maharal, Perish Midrash Zeh. The Maharal says, but this is not just because of the historic import. There's something else here. Specifically, something that survived a world cataclysm. Noah was saved in the Teva, which is 50 amot wide. And he was saved for a time, at a time when the world was torn apart, and in fact became it was returned to its antediluvian state, its anti-creation state, actually, to the pre-creation, its primal state, where it's nothing but water. As I explained to you before, this world functions with the 49 gates, 7 days of the week, 7 weeks in the Sfirat HaOmer, 7 years in Shemitah, 7 times 7, 49, and the 50th is Yovel, is beyond time and space. That's the idea of it. All right, so that's what he's writing here. The whole world was washed out through the flood. How did the world get saved, says the Maharal? From the 50th gate, which is above the world. Why is there the dimension of 50 associated with any aspect of what Noach is encased within, imprisoned within, but also saved within? Because he is, during the time period, anyone who's in the Teva, are actually outside of the world. The world does not exist. It is back to its chaotic form. You'll ask me, and should ask me, what about the fact that there are other dimensions? It was, it went also it had a length and it had a height as well. Yeah, that's a good question. And the Maharal writes, I have another shiur about it, basically. Why is it 300 in another one of the dimensions and 30 in terms of the height? Here he's focused on why the number 50, and that Haman goes to get that piece of wood because when Noach was saved from the cataclysm that God brought against the world, Noach was saved by being removed from the world, being elevated above the world, literally and spiritually. By the by, there's also an element here, I think, the Maharal doesn't say this, so this is a tzvi angle, I don't know if it's true or not, but it seems to me the idea that to the extent that this man knows about world history, knows Jewish history, he's looking at this event that he's going to do and thinking to himself, if the God of the Jews wants to kill me because of what he did, I will put the symbol of the fact that God saves certain people out in front. Like if there's some cataclysm coming, I'll get through it, just like Noach got through it. Yeah, sort of like in your face, God. Here's here you go. Now in the footnote here, again, the same Rav Hartman notes this idea, and he says that actually Noach is not just saved up until Noach, and Noach is still the world. It's rather the world is destroyed completely and became just water as it was the beginning of the creation. He's quoting this is a Hebrew translation from the Zohar HaKadosh that says exactly that. And Noach is saved because he is separate from the world in his teva. This is also what the Maharal writes in his commentary on Chumash in the Gur Aryeh. And he goes on to describe other examples of this, that what it means during the flood is that there is nothing left. The world has been collapsed. It's not just that it's underwater, it does not exist. And it's reconstituted afterward. So there's lasting impressions from this miraculous event. Meaning that Hashem, when he makes a nes, and he makes some kind of a change in the creation of the world, even after the nes ends, there is, because of the fact there was some kind of a miracle, there's going to be some kind of impression left from it, something that remains. And because that was the object in which Noach was saved. Again, this magical view of the world that Haman has, that obviously the Teva itself has a magical component, right? So he says, even though the world is not run today as it was run during the time period of Noach, it's not going to be a salvation that way, but still something's left. There's a remnant from the Shara Chamishim. There's an object that still represents the 50th gate, if you will, that is beyond this world. I'll use that. There's still that power. And what's Haman all about? Accruing more and more power. And so here he's accruing all the power. You see how this goes click, 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 yeah? He is moving through this idea. This is his rapacious approach to the world was not just about property and politics. It was also about intellect and spiritual powers. Ulefikach, Amar Haman Shu Adam Yichidi Prativ, he says, I'm just one individual, but I'm going to draw the power of that event. Ubifrat b'harei Ararat, Shishamait Teva Shel Noach, right? Shu Atzalatov, Arat hu Kardania, Shechem Tigim Unklus, Harei Ararat. The Torah actually calls it Mount Ararat, and that's called in Aramaic Turia Kardania, and that's actually where Haman's son is the governor. V'amar Shematza Neser Echad Shemitevoto Shel Noach, V'atzal Lomar Koach Ma She'ev Atzalato Shel Noach. Because a person who's an individual like Haman, he can attain this power, so he thinks. And it's whatever it is, but he'll draw it. He'll whatever is in it, he'll take it. You imagine him sort of like rubbing his sleeves on the 50-foot high tree, like polishing it, but also saying, let some of it rub off on me. Or let me say, somewhat tongue-in-cheek, and yet not so tongue-in-cheek, knock on wood. Knock on wood. Haman, knock on wood. That's what he's doing. Knock on wood. Not a Jewish concept. Not a Jewish concept. V'amar Haman ki hu muchan biyoter lekabel kor zeh mipnei ki beno shel Haman haya hagamon b'harei Ararat. He's running things there, that the teva itself rested upon it. So therefore, he can get that power. He can receive it. And therefore, he thinks that he has the power of the godly. And through that power, he will overcome Mordechai. He sees the great intellect, but also the great spiritual representation that Mordechai is in the world. He'll have to fell that. Now, in case you think this parallel between the days of Purim and the time period of Noach is far-fetched, it turns out there are other midrashim that point in exactly that direction. Here's the Yalkut Shimoni. When the Megillah introduces him, Mordechai says, Ishu di haya, Rabbi Levi Amar, Kol mi shenamar bo ra'a bo haya, ra'a olam chadash. Anyone for whom it used the expression haya, it means they saw a new world in their lifetime. Amar Rabbi Abba bar Chanina, Chamishem, here are the five: Noach, Yosef, Moshe, Eov, Mordechai. Five people who went from an old world to a new world. They crossed through what you could call, for lack of a better term, a certain portal. They went through a gateway that you can't go back to. Noach lived in two worlds. Yosef lived in two worlds before when he was a slave, and then when he rise to prominence, right? He ran away from Paro, but then afterward he'll be back, and Paro will be in the water, etc. Right? Saw a new world. Eov, the world before his tragedies, and then after, and Mordechai. Rabbanan Amri, Komishin Amarbo, Haya, Zan Upirnes. Anyone for whom it describes that they were, Ish Yehudi Haya. They were, it means that they fed others. Noach did that, Yosef did that, Moshe did that, and Mordechai did that. How? Each one was in charge of feeding other people, taking care of others. Now, if we had more time, we don't have time today, so I'm skipping it. But there are so many parallels in the stories between these people that you could make a whole shiur up comparing any of these individuals, right? The tragic dimension and Mordechai. I've given several shiurim over the years. Again, you can find them all archived at rabbitzviengel.org. Those are not on YouTube, about comparison between Yosef and Mordechai. We've talked a lot about that over the years, and here you see it as well. Mordechai's down appearance took care of his relative of Esther. We're running a little short on time, but I'm going to mention this parenthetical piece, and when you smile, you'll know you'll be in good company. But Rabbi Yudin said one time when he first took Esther in, she was an orphan, he went to go find all the wet nurses. He couldn't find anybody. So he didn't know what he was going to do. He couldn't find her a nursemaid. And of course, infants didn't have formula back in the day. He has nobody. He's by himself. Who's he going to do? What's he going to do? So says Rav Yudin in the Yalkut Shimoni, he nursed her. Rabbi Abba taught this in the tzibur to the community. He gave this as a drush. He explained this, that somehow he began lactating. They all started grinning. Everyone was like chuckling and mumbling to themselves, is patently crazy. What does that mean? That's an ace, indeed, but it seems so strange. So Marlon, v'lomatnitahi. He said to them, "Oh, I know you're smiling, but by the way, it's a Mishnah. Rabbi Shimon ben Elazar Omer, Chalav hazachar tahor." There's actually a Mishnah that describes that the milk that would emerge from a male would be considered tahor. Wild stuff. The point here is that Mordechai, b'delais b'rei, he has no way to take care of Esther. Hashem will help him to find a way, even a miraculous way. Again, a hidden miracle, certainly, and a strange one at that, but it's right here. Mordechai has nightmares. He has nightmares. What's his nightmare? His nightmare is about two gigantic sea creatures, sea monsters, reptiles of some sort, maybe whales, not clear who they are. and they're fighting against each other in some kind of Teutonic struggle. Mordechai knew everything that was done. He kept having a recurring dream the second year of Achashverosh. What did he see in the dream? There's a great earthquake. There's great trembling that's going on, a very loud sound upon the entire earth. There's great fear. There's terror upon all of its inhabitants. Two great taninim, two great, again, are they sea creatures of some sort? Are they reptiles? I don't know. There's something. They're sea monsters in his dream. They come to fight each other, and they're making a loud noise. And between them, there is a tiny little nation. And all the nations are getting up against this little nation in order to destroy it from the world. And this day is a very dark day for the whole world. And there is so much pain for this nation, this little nation. They start crying out to Hashem. They're davening furiously. Next week's shir about davening. And what are these sea creatures doing? They're fighting cruelly against each other. And what does Mordechai see in his dream? Mordechai sees that there is a little brook, a little stream, ma'yan echad over bein shtei atanim, that's passing in between the two creatures. V'yafrid bein shneihem min hamilchama asher hayu nilchamim. And what happens is this little tiny stream, this wellspring, v'yigdal ha'ma'yan v'yihila nachal shotef keshetef hayam hagadol lech v'shotef al kol haaretz. He sees that this little stream becomes a flood, and it actually floods over the entire world. V'yizrach hashemesh, the sun comes out. V'ya'er al kol ha'olam, and there is suddenly new light that comes upon the whole world. V'yitromim hagoy ha'katan v'naseh shalom ve'emet b'chol ha'aretz. And what comes up? There is peace and truth in the land. I forgot to put in here, but you could look it up for yourself. Look at these two words. Emet v'shalom ve'emet, emet v'shalom. Look it up at the end of the Megillah. These words actually appear verbatim at the end of the Megillah. In Parak 9, Parak 10, about Mordechai and being Dorish, Shalom and Emet, Divrei Shalom v'Emet, you'll see it there. What is this a reference to, of course? So it's the imagery of wars and battles. There's another shir I could give here, which I won't give here, that has to do with something, perhaps, according to Rav Meidan, it is a depiction here of the Persian Empire warring against the Greek Empire with many naval battles, the very famous battles, including the Battle of Salamis and others that took place in the 5th century BCE. There are a lot of chronological issues here that would make this problematic. I don't want to go there, but you should just be aware that there are those who read it more in a literal vein. I just see it here as whatever the warring is, whatever his dreamscape, there's something here where the rescue comes because of a flood and then the water receding. We saw this Gemara already before. Haman mina Torah minayin. Where is he mentioned in the Torah? Well, he's mentioned already in the Garden of Eden. And I mentioned to you previously that you can look this up for yourself, of course, in the story. And there's a lot of parallels between Haman as the Nachash HaKadmoni, as the great serpent arriving again in the world to wreak havoc for the Jewish people and for the world at large. But it's somehow connected to Hashem's question to them, Hamin ha'etz, Haman ha'etz, some play on words there. But says the coin from Lublin, V'achakach shalu b'Haman v'chein b'Mordechai v'Esther mina Torah minayin. And the Gemara asks, where's Haman in the Torah? Where's Mordechai in the Torah? Where's Esther in the Torah? V'hainu shehem hayu shoresh she'az hitchil itpashtu Torah sheba'al peh. The beginning phase of the spreading, the expansion of Torah sheba'al peh happens when? Happens specifically during the period of Purim. Just think of the holiday of Purim, right? The whole holiday out of whole cloth. It doesn't literally have a source explicit in the Torah, except for the part about remembering what Amalek did to us, and except for the part of Ketov Zot Zikaron Basefer. The Chachamim are trying to figure out where it's anchored in a pasuk in Parshat B'Shalach in order to show there's some anchor somewhere. But says the coin from Lublin, that's why we care suddenly. Like, Haman mina Torah minayin. Why don't you say Ezra mina Torah minayin or Hillel mina Torah minayin? We don't have to do that. Specifically, Haman, Esther, Mordechai, because they are all involved in the story of the beginning of the expansion of Torah sheba'al peh. V'amru Haman mina Torah minayin, Hamin ha'etz, dahainu she'edei Haman zachu la'or Torah sheba'al peh. The Jewish people got the or Torah, the light of Torah sheba'al peh, the oral tradition, came through because of Haman. Now he is an enemy, but he brought it about. There's a section here I'm going to skip because we just don't have time, and I'll open a whole new vista about what the two trees represent. So skip it for now. So we won't get to the the Omkoshel Inyan. But Vinei Haman Asa Eitz Gavoa Chamishim Ama, he made a 50 amma high, tree. I keep saying feet, but it's really amot, 19 inches per amma. V'yesh lahavin lama hutzroch eitz gavoa kol kach litlot adam echad l'dato v'hayadai shia gavoa eser amma, be enough with 10, you didn't need 50. V'hainu shehaman shehirgish shebazman itpasator shebal peh v'anu chamishim sharei bina, the bina mevin davar me'achochma, right? He sensed, he literally sensed, like he fully understood it. I don't know. The coin from Lublin teaches us he understood there's some change in the way the Jewish people function that's happening here, and I have to put a stop to it. And that is that they're going to start expanding an oral tradition. This was the time already of the men of the Great Assembly, of which Mordechai is a member, right? So they're making decrees. They're making fence around the Torah. What is his specific argument, Haman's argument, to Achashverosh against the Jews? What they do for haughtiness, for separatism, for provincialism, chauvinism. It's not really about being part of our empire, sire. And that's what the Gemara says, right? Their religion is different than our religion, right? They're not like every nation, right? They don't eat with us. They don't marry with us. They don't let us marry into them. And they don't do the dictates of the king. They're all day long, all year long, they're crying out, today's Shabbos, today's Pesach. Then they're too busy. You don't leave them around. You know, if you had when they sit around, they eat and drink, they spend the whole time speaking Lashon Hara about you. And if a fly were to fall in their cup, they would throw it out and they would drink it. But if you, sire, touch their cup, they'll spill out the cup. Like you're worse than a bug to them. That's how much they hold you in low esteem. Now, what are maybe not the Shabbos and Pesach, but what are all the other things here about not eating and drinking and the issues of Yayin Nesach and Stam Yenam and intermatch? So many of these things, there are Gedarim, they're guardrails rather, that are put in place to safeguard Judaism. By who? By the Anshe Knesset Agdola. That's what Haman's against. And that's what he means. They don't do what we're supposed to do. They don't follow it. But by the way, on the double entendre system of the Megillah, it's also Date HaMelech Einam Osim. They're not listening to what the strictures of the king are. What does that mean? Their truth is they're not doing what the King of Kings wants either. The truth is they just do it to be different. They're insincere. They don't really care. Really, we should get rid of them because they're not even real in their own religion. And therefore, the 50 Amma tree is to hint to the Jewish people, all right? So the fact that he ended up making an eitz of 50 Amma, says the coin from Lublin, is actually to signal to the Jews, you know, you do have access to the 50 Amma tall tree, of which you can never figure out all of its mysteries, but you can figure out a lot within it. That's the tree of the Torah. But in the end, it was upside down. It was made inverted for him. In the end, Hashem took vengeance against them and against his children. And au contraire, Yisrael Zachor al yedei zeh dehadar kiblua l'Torah sheba'al peh me'avad hanes. As the Gemara says, they accepted the oral tradition from their love of the miracle. That's why they went through, right? So that was the permission. That was now the license granted them. They recommitted themselves to Torah, and therefore it says Hama mina Torah minayin, because he is also a cause to the root of this spreading of the expansiveness of the oral tradition. And the idea is here that v'hit pashta az harov chachma l'taken harov kaas. This is like a whole shir in of itself. There was now the expansion of the great wisdom, the wisdom of Torah, to fix the great anger. It's a play on a pasuk from Sefer Kohelet, from Megilat Kohelet. Valzeh Ramaz, that's the remez, that's the remez of Hamin Ha'etz. Was it from the tree? Haman Ha'etz. The Eitz, She'asa Haman, Gavoa Chamishim Ama, Haya Neged Chamishim Shari Bina Shebetor Shebal Peh. Right? That is as against the Torah, Shebal Peh, the oral tradition. That's the tree that he made. And Shelley, thank you for pointing out, yes, that indeed various among the Persian kings let the nations keep the rights to their languages. It's in the Megillah. But in Haman's world, it's about insouciance on the part of the Jewish people. It's somehow about their conniving desire to show themselves as separatists. You could give lie to it by saying, but everyone spoke their language. Yeah, but the Jews are special in that negative and terrible way of anti-Semitic tropes. Yeah, we've learned this before, so I'll sort of gloss over it for now. But the Gemara describes. We learned this actually last week. So just to remind you, in 2 sentences, there's some kind of asterisk or caveat that hangs over Matan Torah, and the fact that the mountain was held over their heads when they accepted the Torah. And when did they accept it anew? In the days of Achashverosh, and I explained it last time. I'll say it again this time. My read of it, not everyone has to agree. It means that the pressure of being at Har Sinai was so overwhelming. You just heard literally from Hashem. It's an offer they couldn't refuse. And in the days of Achashverosh, God is completely hidden unless they decide to admit him into their lives and into the world, to see his hidden hand in the world ongoing. And in that case, Kimu v'kiblu haYehudim, Kimu masha kiblu kvar. They affirmed, they accepted, and redoubled their acceptance of it. The Medrash Tanchuma teaches that the split here between what happened at Har Sinai, what happened in Achashverosh, the Medrash Tanchuma describes here is indeed that when they were at Har Sinai, they accepted upon themselves the Torah Shebichtav, the written tradition. What did they have more problems with? The Torah Sheba'al Peh. Now, here's the strange thing, and I haven't found an answer anywhere, but it dovetails so beautifully, so symmetrically with everything I'm saying until now. In what section of the Medrash Tanchuma did the Chachamim choose to teach us this whole idea? There's a Torah Sheba'al Peh and a Torah Sheba'al Torah Sheba'al Peh, and it's 2 acceptances. It's actually found at the beginning of Parshat Noach. Ela told Noach. And this is a whole other off-ramp, not for now. We've talked about it on different occasions, that the generation of Noach was supposed to receive the Torah. Pinchas Friedman goes into a whole sidebar about this. We won't go into it now, but the idea is that the Holy One Blessed be He says, I chose the Jewish people from among the 70 nations, and I gave them a Torah that is written, that has many hints, a Torah Shebichtav, that has many hints, hidden parts, and I gave them the explication through the Torah Sheba'al Peh, and it revealed that to the Jewish people. And that the covenant ultimate that God made with the Jewish people was actually on the Torah Sheba'al Peh, ki al pi hadvar ma'ila karati it chabrit, and the fact that the Jewish people really had trouble accepting that part of it. Why? Because it was hard. Because they said, we'll say Nas Nishma on the part that is written, because it's very easy and accessible to understand. But with the Torah Sheba'al Peh, we have more issues. Because there are so many things that we have to try to figure out. It's so strong, it's so deep, it's so challenging, and sometimes we're defeated when we're trying to learn it. You know who's going to learn it, says Hashem? Only people who love me are going to learn. People who love Hashem, love me. They're the people who are going to learn Torah. They're the people who are going to be connected. You have to apply your strength, intellectual strength as well, and your whole soul to be meet yourself, be willing to die over the Torah. It goes on, there's a lot more here, but the idea that the holiday of Purim is a time of Matan Torah, but it's not a formal Matan Torah. It's a Matan Torah that's hidden. What's the Matan Torah? Hello, here's a new yontif for you. Here's 4 new mitzvahs. Here's the Anshe Knesset Agdola, who are telling you that now we live in an ambient culture that doesn't hold us, lo aleinu, in a ghetto, but wants to smother us to death and marry us into oblivion. We can't let that happen. That's the holiday of Purim. That's the first holiday of the beginnings of that. And Haman, Yamach Shemo, plays a role in that. His 50 tree, the Nahafochu, is not just that Haman is hung on it, but it's a signal to the Jews. Do you remember from the days of Noach, the Chamishu Sharei Bina, how he was saved in a supernatural way? We're being saved in a supernatural way. He had some access to this 50th gate that even Moshe didn't have access to. We can at least aspire to it even if we don't reach there. How? Through our 50 Amma high tree, if you will, our Ilana that we have, that is the tree that is of the Torah Sheba'al Peh that we need to work on and work out. In that same section of Parshat Noach, of Ela Toldot Noach, 5 more minutes, we find the following, because I haven't hit the punchline yet. Get fasten your seatbelts. There's more. It's like there's a wondrous series of ideas that I discovered. I couldn't get over it. What does it describe? It says in that section of Medrash Tanchuma that Hashem made 2 yeshivot, 2 conferences for the Jewish people, that they will get together day and night. 2 yeshivot here doesn't mean just, well, it does, sorry. First it means 2 places. One is in Bavel. Paras is Bavel, right? Just like, what was that game? Othello, where everything you flip from black to white, just flips over. It says flip to Persia, but the people didn't move from Babylon to Persia. They were living in the Empire of Babylon, which became the Empire of Persia. So the yeshiva in Bavel started in the First Temple period. And then you also had one in Eretz Yisrael, so there'd be people always learning. But then there would be twice in the year the people would get together for a conference. One was in Adar, the other was in Elul. When? At year's end. When? Before great holidays of the Jewish people in the months of Nisan and Tishrei. When? According to the Gemara, there's an argument. When was the world created? Rabbi Yeshua says the world was created in the month of Nisan, which makes Adar the pre-world gathering, if you will, pre the anniversary of the world. And we, of course, follow the opinion of Rabbi Eliezer. The world was created in the Chodesh Tishrei, and therefore what is Elul? It's the primordial time. It's the time before time was invented. What was that? That was the time when people would gather from all over the world. We call that, the Geonim refer to it as the Yarchei Kala, the months of the Kala. Why it's called Kala, big debate. What do they do at that time? The people, the sages, get together for a massive conference of learning. And what are they doing there? They're warring with each other. Daika, the conflict, to try to understand Rava's right, Abaye's right, Beit Shammai, Beit Hillel, back and forth, Havayot Abaye v'Rava. They're trying to figure out what is the true halacha. You have to drill down. And you know what? It's a crisis. It hurts. There's like a war. There's a battle going on. But it's all Hashem Shemayim. And it's for what purpose? To set up the world in an orderly fashion through the prism of Torah. What is the drive to figure out what the halacha is l'amita, if not the question of what's the practical implication? Okay, drill down. Halacha means to walk, to journey, to go. How do we deal with this set of circumstances based on the first principles that we have taught to us in our Torah, Torah Shebiktav and Torah Sheba'al Peh? And they bring proofs from the various sources, from the Mikra, the Mishnah, the Talmud. You know why? So the Jewish people will not be without learning. Shalom Rav, great peace for those who love Torah, and for his nation there will not be any stumbling block or obstacle. Hashem gives strength to his people. Hashem ozlam yitain. Hashem yivarech and shalom. God will give peace to his people. Abaye says, you know what the reward is for going to the Kala, meaning the Yarchei Kala? Abaye says in the Gemara in Brachot, duchka, that it should be so crowded, there's so many people. That's the reward. The reward is I went and I didn't have anywhere to sit. There was no social distancing in that place. The answer is, yeah, because there's so many people and they're all jostling to figure out what the truth is. These two yeshivot, says the Madrash, they were never put into captivity. They were never destroyed. They were never looted. And no one ever had any sway over them. Look at the two nations that never had sway over them. Not Greece and not Rome. Greece and Rome that come after the holiday of Purim didn't say Bavel and Paras. Why not? Because in the days of Yavan and Edom, that's the big development of Torah Sheba'al Peh. And what else did Hashem do? He took them 12 years before the destruction of the first Beit HaMikdash in 586 BCE, 11 to 12 years early in the year, give or take, 597 BCE. He took them, these people, these Torah sages, out of Yerushalayim, and he put them in Bavel. So says the verse in Kings 2. And it mentions in passing, the mighty men. Asks the Medrash, what kind of mighty men are these? They're going out to exile. It's pretty damning indictment. They were mighty men, but they lost. No, Ela Elu Gibore Torah. These are the mighty people of Torah. Tzedakah Asa Kadosh Baruch Hu Yisrael. Great tzedakah to God and the Jewish people that he had the galut of Yehoiachin, of Yochoniah, before the galut of Tzidkiyahu, so that the Torah will not be forgotten. The Torah Sheba'al Peh would not be forgotten. V'yeshu Toratan bebavel tasha ad hayom, until today. V'lo shalat behen lo edom v'lo yavan v'lo gazlim shmad, and there was no destruction against them. Who is among those people? Who is among those people? Ish Yehudi Haya, a man who saw a world before and a world after, who is now in Shushan Abira. Here's his name. He was exiled from Yerushalayim with the galut, which was the galut of Yechonia, Melech Yehuda Sheragla Nebuchadnezzar, Melech Bavel. At the time of King Yehoiachin, Yochoniah is his other diminutive name. He was brought among those people, because who's one of the Giborei Koach? Mordechai. Mordechai, who has to do with this 50 amma high tree, not the tree of hanging people on it, but the tree of learning, and who's setting things up, and who realizes the greatest antidote, the greatest protection that Hashem gave to against the enemies of the Jewish people who want to wish us ill, is to have set up opportunities for us to learn Torah. In a world that seems chaotic, that is, before the world is set in some kind of orderly manner, when things seem to be navocha, in a state of consternation and upside down, the learning continues, the learning continues, the learning continues. And it's put on display more so here because the re-ratification of it was davka, that there's an enactment of a new holiday, new Yom Tov, by the Ashkenaz Gedolah. It's called Purim. And therefore, the people are celebrating not just a holiday of rescue, but a holiday in which they're reaffirming, the Torah Sheba'al Peh is part and parcel of our Torah. It's our 50 Amahai Ilan, if you will, that we have a connection to. Last thing, the raven and the dove. Amar Rav Chanan bar Rava Amarav. Imeida Haman, the mother of Haman's name was Amatlai bat Urvati. She was known as the daughter of a guy named Urvati. But the word Urvati, you know what it sounds like? The Hebrew word Orev. I didn't make this up. The coin from Lublin did. And this reminds us, of course, of the Edgar Allan Poe work that so many of us had to memorize at some point, The Raven. Yeah? The sinister raven. Knesset Yisrael is compared, the Jewish people are compared to a dove. Italia, they're compared to, as it says in Masechet Shabbat, the dove is the couple that goes together with Hashem. Who bat zugo, that goes with Hashem. The Nukva de Kedusha I won't explain now. What is the husk? That is the polar opposite, the mirror image. Zeh umat zeh, this against that. From the world of Kedusha, Tahara, that's the Yonah. That's the Jewish people. What's on the other side? That's the raven, as far as I'm concerned. V'lachein imo shel Haman bat urvita, ki kol makom b'drash Chazal. And he goes on to explain that you have the idea of the two, the Orev, the raven, and the dove set against each other. And therefore, Haman is descended of a mother who was actually from the Urva. And we hear all these ideas about how they're contrasted one with the other. A lot of examples, we can't do it now. And says the coin from Lublin, in one womb, they're exactly the same. But one is considered pure and one is considered defiled. Nonetheless, and as the Medrash describes, the Yonah has a sense of fealty to her mate, and the Orev not so. And now you'll understand the secret that Noach sent out the Orev and then the Yonah. Therefore, Noach first sends out the Orev, the raven, before the Yonah, always. Forever and always, the klipa means the shell goes on the outside of the fruit. And therefore the Orev comes before the Yonah. And who is the Orev? The black Orev, the son of a mother who was descended of the Orev. It's none other than Haman himself, who is sent out and who's constantly still to the end of the world, roving back and forth, back and forth. And here, if you know the story of the raven, I can't help myself. I'm sorry. I'm a student of English literature. You know that it describes that the raven came in and perched itself on top of Pallas Athena, which Pallas Athena is sometimes how Athena, lahavdil small g, the goddess of wisdom for the Greeks, was Athena, sometimes called Pallas Athena. Machloikis scholars exactly, not our scholars, but in that world, but what that means. But what's this? That the raven sits on top of wisdom. Just like the raven in our story, lahavdil, wants to be above the dot that we have access to. What's our holiday characterized by? Ada lo yada. Until we're beyond knowledge. I'm not suggesting that means a person should get inebriated from a practical perspective or halachic issues there to the point where you don't know between Baruch, Mordechai, and Or Haman. But why? Why that? Because there is a connection, a symmetry of a polar opposites between the dove and the raven. Now, this started as a joke for me, totally a joke. But I would like to leave it with you for your consideration. The Vatanach HaTeva, it rested. Noach Vatanach, it rested, right? Further along, same section. What happened to the dove? It did not find a Manoach L'Kaf Ragla. It did not find anywhere to be, right? It was stuck. So it came back to the Teva, had to go back to the Teva, and he took it with him into the Teva. So it didn't find a Manoach L'Kaf Ragla. It was waiting, the Yonah, the Jewish people, in all this symbolism and imagery. Then what happened? He sends it out again, right? And then it comes back, and it has the olive branch, yeah. So I thought, well, okay, whatever it is, Vatanach, Noach, it's very nice. But I note that at the end of the Megillah, and this may just be a joke, it may not be any more than a joke. But did you ever notice that at the end of the Megillah, mysteriously, you find here that the Jews who were in the Medinot HaMelech, they got together, v'modal nafsham, and then it tells you v'noach me'oivehem, right here. They found a Noach. B'yom Shlosha said they rested. Here again, in this pasuk, v'noach be'arba asar bo. And what do? Then they can make the Mishnah and the Simcha. The Yehudim were gathering together. Nikal b'shlosha asar bo v'arba asar bo. Again, v'noach b'chamisha asar bo, the Jews of Shushan. I mean, it could be that it's just happenstance. It could be it means nothing. But I thought the fact that so many times it mentioned this reference, and then if we didn't have it enough, that we have this idea here of the fact that that Mordechai writes it up, it's going to be a holiday, the fact that we're going to make and enact a certain days, the 14th and the 15th every year. Kayamim asher nachu bahem hayehudi me'oivehem. We have it yet again. It's all about the resting, the nach, the noach, vatana chateva. And the idea here, the chodesh that changed, that transformed, that could have been terrible, and that turned out to be a time period of Yemei Mishta v'Simcha Mishloach Manot Ish L'Re'eu Matanot Le'Avyonim, and so may it be also for us in our own observance of this beautiful Yom Tov, to understand how many layers are going on here in terms of the manifold way in which this holiday represents not just the momentary salvation, but actually is bound up intrinsically with the themes of the Teutonic struggle, I could call it that now, between the Jewish people and our enemies, who should not be taken lightly, who do see things in symbolic and philosophical terminology and mystical terminology sometimes. And the message of Purim, of course, that HaKadosh Baruch Hu does provide his providential guidance, providential forthcoming, but also having set up pieces before for our own ability to sustain ourselves and to be able to keep on going and to endure no matter the challenges that we may face then or now. By Yamim Hahem uvazman hazeh. Yiratzum shebizochem tiyemei mishta v'simcha as well in the coming week. Ad kan for today.